and welcome to the Notary News Channel. My name is Desiree Roman Rodriguez, and I'm a subject matter expert on all things notary in the state of Illinois. Today we're going to talk about the myths surrounding being a notary signing agent, and all of these videos that are posted on the internet about how you can make $100,000 a year, $5,000 a month, $8,000 a month. And first, let me say, I've been a notary and a notary signing agent since 2003. And I have been hearing those claims since way back then, except when I first started to do it, the claims were I could earn $250,000 a year. But let me reassure you, that is a myth. You might, and I say that in quotes, you might be able to make $100,000 if you have no life, no spouse, no children, you have no social life. You do nothing but work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and do nothing but close loans Monday through Saturday. And even if you make the 100,000, that would be gross. It would not be net. In all of the years that I worked as a notary signing agent, and this includes the year the housing market crashed, I at one point was working 6 days a week and working 8 to 10 hour days, and I also had two other notaries working with me. And I assure you, even in that year, we did not make $100,000 that year. And even though there were months that we may have made $5,000 or $8,000, there was two other notaries working besides myself. And again, that was not net, that was gross. One of the other myths that notaries have to understand about the notary signing agent business is the whole gross versus net. And while you may gross $100,000, that is not going to be your net, meaning what you take home, what your profit ends up being. And you have to take into consideration all of the expenses that come along with being a notary signing agent. You also have to take into consideration your competition. How many other notaries are there working in your state, in your area? You also need to consider the housing market. What are the conditions in the state that you're in? For example, if you are in a city like Detroit, where the housing industry is not as lucrative as, let's say, California, the odds are you're not going to find yourself making $100,000 a year in Detroit, while you may get close to that in California. It's a very big difference. Also, for example, Delaware has about 10,000 notaries. The state of Texas has over 400,000 notaries. Everybody trying to do the same job. So that makes a big difference. And then also, what are the market conditions? After the crash in 2007, many notaries ended up having to take regular 9-to-5 jobs because there was no refinances happening. There were no purchases. There were no sales. It was bad in that year that the market crashed, and even several years after that. Only now is the market starting to recuperate, and there are programs like loan modifications, debt consolidations, and a lot of other products that are being offered to help with the work that a notary signing agent does. But what type of market is in the area that you live in determines the kind of work that you're going to be able to get paid. One of the other myths also is making the $150 to $200 an hour. That is not true. If you are a new person who is deciding to be a notary and come into this market and start to market yourself, you have to get known in the business. Now, if you were working for a title company, if you were working for a mortgage or a bank and decided to transition from being a notary in their office to doing notary signing agent work independently, then you may have that nice niche, that connection, and that title company may give you $200 a closing closing, $150 a closing. That is not the standard. If you are new into this business, average companies, signing agent companies, pay between $75 and $100 a closing. Now, getting paid at closing, another myth. If unless you are working again with a title company that you are familiar with, they know who you are, you work with them, there are some title companies that will pay at closing. The majority of the companies that do hire signing agents do not pay at closing. Usually you don't see a paycheck until 30 to 45 days after your signing has taken place, which means you have to float your business for those 30 to 45 days until you receive money. And if there are many unscrupulous signing agencies that don't pay their notaries or their signing agents, and you have to call and harass them, and you might see money from those companies 60 days net. Another myth is the low startup cost. I assure you, it is not low startup cost to do a notary or signing agent business. The very first things you have to take into consideration is your equipment. Your computer has to be fast enough to be able to download documents quickly, especially if you are doing closings back to back. 200 to 300 pages in a packet. If one borrower is signing a packet that's 150 pages, you have to print 2 sets. That's 300 pages. And many of the title companies do not want you to print documents back to back or double-sided. So you also have to front the paper. A case of legal size paper, a case of letter size paper. You also have to have the toner for your printer. And it can't be an inkjet printer. It must be a laser jet printer. So those costs have to be factored in. And that is just equipment. Then you must consider you have to have a vehicle. You have to have insurance on your vehicle. You also need to have your commission to pay to be a notary. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to have to pay for some training. You're going to have to pay to get a background check. If you want good reputable companies to hire you, there's a fee for that. To be a notary, you have to pay for a bond. You must have error and omissions insurance, and many very good title companies that do pay their notary signing agents well require you to have $100,000 in error and omissions insurance. And those are just some of the startup costs. So it is not low startup costs, and those are definitely factors that you have to consider when you are starting a signing agent business. Now, can you squeak by on an old computer that you have and an old printer? Yes. One of the biggest things that I had wished someone had told me when I started with the signing agent business was not to give up my day job. Because especially if you are not already in the mortgage industry business, and you're going to have to take the time to build up your clientele, market yourself, get your name out there, let them know, hey, I'm in this area, I'm available to do closings. And while that is taking time to build, you still have to pay your bills, pay your rent, have paper, have toner, pay your internet service so that you can receive assignments. You also have to have a good phone, because a lot of the signing agents companies that assign assignments to notaries have now moved to mobile apps. And so your assignments come on your phone. If you don't have good cell phone service, if you have limited data, if you don't have enough space on your phone for the apps for these companies, you miss out on a lot of work. So those are the kinds of things that I wanted to dispel today, to let people know these myths that are out here for these companies that are saying jump into this business and you can make $100,000 a year, and it's just not the truth. It is a possibility, but it's not the normal. That you have to consider it as in any industry. You can go and be in the movies and make $100,000 making a movie, but the reality of it is, for a long while, you're going to be an extra in the background of that movie making $40 a day. So in the meantime, keep your eyes out. If you have questions, if you want to know more information, you have questions, post them in the comments below. We do offer the ability to answer questions in real time if you go to our Twitter, and it's at Notary Channel. So tweet us your questions and you'll get answers in real time. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe below.